Yeah, mornings and then jet skis during the day. I'm not trying to sound cocky or anything, but now I could make like 100, 200,000 on a play. And honestly, like, it's all FU money if you.
That was the voice of Zach Morris, whose real name is Edward Constantine, founder of Atlas Trading. He built an empire, tricking his loyal followers into buying penny stocks that he already owned, eventually working his way up to an 8-figure net worth. Until one day, it all came crashing down.
Markets regulator has charged 8 individuals over an alleged $100 million securities fraud scheme.
On December 14th, 2022, the SEC announced that they had filed charges against Zach Morris and co., bringing to an end their lavish lifestyle of fast cars and partying. The results from the public were mixed. Some people glad, and others wondering why it took so long. I mean, they weren't exactly discreet. Take a look at them making fun of the SEC in February. And if there's one thing you don't want to do, it's taunt the authorities. Come to think of it, they did nothing but promote and show off. Which begs the question, how did they get away with it for so long, making hundreds of millions of dollars, while their viewers lost millions of their hard-earned money? To understand that, we have to go back to the start. Back before all this took place, each of the individuals listed in the SEC charges was on his own path to fraud. Zach Morris, aka Edward Constantine, said he never finished college but received a GED. He said he worked for T-Mobile for 10 years part-time, where he made $60,000 a year. However, if you look online, the maximum salary at T-Mobile that does not require a college degree is $60,000 full-time. Anyways, he moved to Texas because he heard you could make a lot of money in the home building industry. He says he started making around $200K per year, which of course sound like made up numbers. And this is when he says he started messing around with stocks. First with oil stocks, where he lost money, and wanted to learn how to actually profit. So he found StockTwits and learned about paid chat rooms, which is what he used later on. To set up the con, they needed a couple key ingredients. First is a way to promote themselves. Then they needed a way to gather all of their followers and communicate stock information to them. And lastly, they needed to sound like they knew what they were doing. Zach Morris met Daniel Knight and Mitchell Hennessy, better known as Dip Deity and Hugh Henney. Little did he know that these two would be his golden ticket. Dan and Hugh had an incredibly successful podcast on the Apple Store and on YouTube. At one point in time, they were ranking the #1 business podcast in the world, above Dave Ramsey and above Ben Shapiro. This podcast proved to be Zach Morris's way in, not only to recruit followers that he could drop the bag on, but to prove his legitimacy to the outside world. And it worked. Big. Atlas Trading at one point reached 250,000 users. But they still had a big problem. They couldn't communicate on YouTube and Twitter too effectively. If they were going to pump their stock picks using their followers, then Twitter and YouTube were visible to the whole world, including the authorities. They would receive negative comments outing their scheme and scaring people away, so they needed to find a place where only people who believed them would hang out, and they could ban anybody else. Zach Morris, drawing from his days in the chat rooms, discovered Discord, the perfect solution. They could control the information exactly how they wanted, set privileges, separate rooms, and ban users who doubted them. More importantly, the communication was chat room style, so anything that contained illegal directions could quickly be erased or buried in thousands of new messages. So they had it all figured out. The last thing they needed was a strategy to explain how they predicted stock performance in the first place. They settled on a form of technical analysis which involves looking at the highs and lows and resistance and then saying to a certain degree of accuracy that the stock will move here or there. In a sense, it's kind of like star signs, aka it doesn't really work. What does work, however, is buying a low volume penny stock and then having thousands of your fans buy in after you and selling as soon as they do so. You see, there are 7 steps to penny stock trading and you can't control any of them. Take a look at this tweet by Tommy Cooperman using this trick to fake some kind of method to his madness. It's no different than distracting your audience with flashy tricks while you pickpocket them. But it worked for them, and for a while, they were doing okay. Business was booming, if you consider fraud business, and the SEC wasn't focused on them at all. They had made a combined total of over $100 million between 2020 and 2022. They also had a combined total of over 1.5 million followers on Twitter. All they had to do was keep doing what they were doing and not antagonize the government, lay low, and not keep a high profile. So naturally, they do the exact opposite. On top of publicly antagonizing the SEC, Zach Morris and gang regularly tweet photos of fast cars and partying. As a result, out of every scammer on YouTube, the SEC sets its sights on them. The SEC manages to plant a mole inside of their inner sanctum, where they recorded the following. And Knight even goes so far as to say what they're doing is market manipulation, giving the SEC exactly what they need to prosecute. And they do. They fine them $114 million and also press criminal charges where each one of them could face up to 35 years in prison. Would you believe me if I said that for every Zach Morris, there were 100 stock scammers on YouTube today? Every corner you turn, you can't escape them. Some of them YouTube has even shipped gold play buttons for hitting 1 million subscribers. No matter how many we get rid of, more just keep popping up, and the SEC doesn't have what it takes to get them all. In the end, we've discovered that all these scammers have one thing in common. They use YouTube and Twitter to promote their Discords and private chat room, where they convince their fans to do their bidding and they profit from it. We also can't forget that the SEC has failed to go after some of the biggest fraudsters in America. People who have been executing insider trades since the dawn of time. I'm talking about Wall Street, more specifically Citadel and Trevor Milton lately. This has to do with a deeply troubling fact in America, that private and public industries are not as separated as we would like. People who work at the SEC are later recruited to work at giant hedge funds and private equity firms that they are supposed to be prosecuting. Additionally, huge asset managers like BlackRock and private equity firms like Citadel hold too much political power to be prosecuted. In fact, many Federal Reserve chairmen go on to work there after their retirement. They also pay speaking fees to Federal Reserve chairmen, to SEC chairmen, and often hire ex-SEC chairmen as their counsel. Not only that, but their kids go to the same school, they travel around the same clubs, and they go to dinner parties together. You're not going to see them arresting those people anytime soon. I explain how this corruption causes more decline in America in another video that I hope you'll watch. And if you've watched this far, I hope you'll go ahead, comment, like, and subscribe. It helps a lot with the algorithm and to grow the channel.